Hi folks, Kirk here with Kirk Giordano Plastering, Jason on the camera. Jose here, he's from BMI. He's the tech rep who will show us how to assemble and disassemble this D30. Now BMI, they make the D20, the D30, they have the big silos. BMI products are worldwide. They're great products. We are working with Rui Bronze. He's the vice president of BMI, Jerry Pozo, as well as Tom and Jose here, who's going to show us how to tear this thing apart. He's going to show us how to assemble it and tear it apart. We're on the 6th floor of a building, and we did have to take it apart to bring it up here. So I'll let you show them that technical stuff, Jose.
Okay, this is our D30. This is our mixer that we use for mixing our 690 plaster. We use it for different products, but for this job we're going to use it for just the plaster, which is the 690. And I'm going to go quickly over how to assemble the machine. The machine's very easy to assemble. There's only 4 removable parts plus 5, which is the unit that hooks up for your hose for the quick connect. And this is what we call the Geeka. This you put on the end of your hose so you could supply water to the system. The other thing that you do need for this machine is 220. Usually the power that you need is 220 30 amp, and this is the type of cord we supply with the machine, which is usually about 100 feet. It's a regular single phase, so you got your 2 hots and 1 ground that you need for this. Today we're going to use a generator that we also provided for the mixer. The mixer
happens to me all the time, brother.
So this mixer, like I said, has water and power that it needs to actually run. So first of all, the 220 we will connect to this socket right here, which is on the right under where this push button is. Okay, if you see right there, it's a male, and of course you're going to hook up your female into it, and it's a twist lock. So when you plug it in, you just line up, make sure to look up for your ground connection and line it up with that one. And once you connect it, you twist it to the right, so you got that lock and solid connection. Okay, the other thing that I was saying earlier is the water connection. So usually you try to go minimum with the 1/2 inch. Today we're using about a 5/8, 3/4 inch hose, which should be fine. For this we need a minimum pressure of 35 to 40 psi. Okay, so to connect the water, first of all, you hook up our Geeka connection that we supply with the machine. You twist it onto the end of your hose, and then you connect it to the bottom of this control unit right here, where the actual brain of the machine. So you usually go from right to left, and you can see you always want to hook up your water right where the gauge is. Okay, so when you put it on, you just slide it over. As you can see, there's no screwing on, it seals itself up with the pressure. So once the water runs to it, it'll seal itself up and we shouldn't have a leak. Okay, down here you see there's the pressure gauge. So the water enters through here, goes through this water reducer, and this water reducer keeps it at a constant pressure. And that's what this machine needs. If you don't have consistent water pressure, you're going to have inconsistent mud coming out. So as long as your pressure stays consistent and your pressure is at 35 to 40 psi, your mix should never change. Okay, right here to the left of this pressure gauge, there's a water adjustment valve. Now you can see it looks kind of like the water adjustment valve like on your your spouts on your houses. It works the same way. When you want more water, you're going to go to the left, and when you want to decrease the water, you're going to go to the right. So usually I set these machines at the shop at a default rate, which is about 3 gallons per minute. So it's pretty much set, and then once we run material out of here, we see where the consistency is and we adjust it from there depending on the contractor. Because contractors some like it a little bit looser than others, some like it a little bit stiffer. So once we get the first batch of material out, we'll adjust it from there depending on what they like. Okay, so at the other end you see this yellow hose. This yellow hose is actually going to feed into the mix, and that's going to connect to this unit right here, this long tube. We call this the rubber mixing tube. This is where the water and the dry product are going to mix. This is the only part besides these other 2 parts, which is the nose cone and the mix shaft, that actually get wet. Everything else stays dry. So that's one thing you got to remember when you're using this thing. The only time you're probably going to wet the whole thing down is when you wash it out and when you're done completely with the machine for your rental. Okay, to assemble it, like I said, there's these units, which is the, like I said, the mixing shaft, the nose cone, and the mix tube. There's other unit, what we call the dry auger, feeding auger. And this is actually going to feed the dry product when you dump it into here. Right here, this unit is what we call the hopper. So you throw your bags on here, and it has like these teeth right here. When you throw it on top, you kind of, we'll go over how we feed it after we actually put material. But for right now, we're just going to show how it assembles and disassembles. So like I said, this is the feeding auger, and this is going to feed everything that's in here, out through here, right into this mix tube. And once we put it together, you'll see how it's done. So to put this dry auger in, back here, this motor swings open. It has this hook, so you could open it up and be able to get to back here. And as you can see right here on the motor, it has a coupling. That's what's going to line up to your feeding auger. You see how it has this unit right here? This is actually what connects, and this motor drives the mud to the front and actually also mixes. So as you can see, it's a continuous mixer. So it's feeding and mixing at the same time. So to slide it through, you put this end in, and you can see it has grooves. These grooves are made this way so it can lock up with the mixing shaft. So to put it in, you just slide it like so through the dosing part. And the dosing part's the small narrow hole that goes out to the front of the machine. Now, right here, you line it up with the coupling. Make sure it sits right in the center, and then you can close this right up. During the rental of the machine, you never have to actually get back here unless somebody dumps water back here and you got to get that wet mud that's out of here. But usually you just always try to keep this area dry. At the end of the day, what you could do is just cover this up with plastic to avoid moisture to get in. And then on the next day, you could tear off the plastic and start feeding it again product. Okay? Now up here, to assemble the mix tube, which is the first piece you put on here, usually I grab the mix tube with two hands and I slide this right here, and this pin is what holds it onto the D30. So what I usually do, I jiggle it with my left hand, and that kind of helps the pin slide through without no problems. And if you don't do that, people intend to start hitting it with the hammer, something you want to stay away from. Because if you do start hitting with the hammer, you're going to have a bent pin and you're not going to be able to assemble it. Okay? So before I close this up, I put the next unit on, which is the mixing shaft. And like I said, on the feeding auger, it had those two grooves. These two pins lock up with the feeding auger. So to put this together, you want to slide this in first, all the way back. And what you want to do here is just line it up with the feeding auger. You just want to get that shaft right in the center. Once you get that in there, you can lock this, this shutter on. Make sure you got a tight connection, get it as tight as you can. And then what you want to do here is push it the rest of the way in. And your guide is pretty much pushing it until you feel it lock in. And you know it's locked in, all you have to do is take a look back there, and you can see the feeding auger spinning with the mixing shaft when I spin it. That's how you know they're connected. Now up here in the front, you got the paddle that's actually the paddle that pushes everything out. Usually when you know this is put on correctly is when the first paddle is a ½ inch from the edge. If it's out too far, there's some dirty material, or there's some material inside the feeding auger where it connects to. If it's not there, it's back here where the coupling is. And the reason it gets back into that coupling is because when you take it apart at the end of the day, that feeding auger is going to want to come out. So it's going to give it just a big enough gap to get product back there. So that's something you got to keep an eye on when you're actually assembling the machine. Okay, so feeding auger is connected with the mixing shaft, and I'm going to slide this the rest of the way in. The last part that gets hooked up to here is the nose cone. This is kind of like the spout. The product's going to drop out through here and come in through here. And as you can see, there's a bearing here. This is where the mixing shaft sits and stays centered. So this, you got to grease once a day. That's the only thing you need to grease on this machine. Everything else is pre-greased, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay? So to put this nose cone on, over here in the front, there's 2 slots. So you see these 2 guide pins? All you got to do is center those and make sure your feeding arc or your mixing shaft slides through your bearing here, and then you could close this up. These are adjustable, so if they're too loose, you could just spin them and they'll tighten up. You want everything nice and tight, and right there is the proper way. Usually when you put this nose cone on, you don't want a gap here because you're going to have product leaking out of here. So this is the way it's always got to be assembled. If you have a gap here, you got to go back to what I was telling you earlier about the coupling back here. Make sure that coupling's nice and clean, and then everything will be assembled correctly. If it's not going on sealing right there, I suggest open it up back here and clean that coupling. Okay, that hose that I showed you earlier, which is the hose that actually connects to the mix tube, goes into this elbow. This is another thing you got to keep an eye on when you clean at the end of the day, that this thing is not clogged up with product, because when you wash it out at the end of the day, the product will find its way in there. So you got to double check that before you actually drop product in there. And it connects the same way as your water hose over there on the bottom end. You just twist it, and with the pressure, it's going to seal itself up. Okay? Over here on the other side, if you want to take a look, this is actually, like I said, the control unit. Inside, there's a couple breakers, and there's a little key that this machine comes with, so you could open up and take a look. So here's the control panel for the mixer. This is actually the main brain of the machine. This sends power to everything that this needs and turns the water on and off for you. So first of all, you got your 2 breakers, which are the most important things here. Just got to make sure these black buttons are pushed in. That way you get the power to the units that you need. So if for some reason they're popped out, you can reset them by pushing the reds and then push the black ones back in. That way the power goes to where it needs to go. Okay? If those are okay, you just close this up. And turn on your water. Make sure you get a pressure reading here, and then right after that, you're ready to start dumping your bags in. We'll go over that once we're ready to start mixing material.
And that is going to be another video, so we don't get this too long. And by the way, I have a Tommy gun 30 years ago, and I had a plaster pump that we had a worm drive to spray dash finishes. Both of them were 10 times as complicated as this. This looks like, oh man, that's a lot of stuff. That is so easy compared to the other equipment that we've used. So I appreciate you showing us how to assemble this and all that. And then pretty quick now, he's going to show on another video how to actually use it. And again, I want to thank Rui Bronze, the president or vice president of BMI, because these guys, all them guys, they remind me of that actress Lucille Ball. If you want something done, ask the busiest person you know, and you just call these guys. They're on it, and they're so busy. So, Rui, appreciate you having Jose out here to show us how to use this, and any of our YouTube viewers. And Jason and I thank you for watching this. Jose, thank you too. We'll see you on the next one. And by the way, we will have a sister act as far as to follow this, show you exactly how to mix it, so we don't get a very long drawn out video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one.